Welcome into this weekend's MLS Best Bets show. Now, for MLS Week 2, we've got 13 games on Saturday, a full slate, and just one game on Sunday. Now, before we get into the best bets this week, let's take a little recap of how Week 1 went. Now, Austin, they were the only home team to lose a game. Now, they may lose again this week as they're going on the road to Seattle, which is usually a tough place to play, and they have no Driussi, who's injured. And then Seattle is also missing a ton of players in Rui Diaz, Pedro, Rusnak, Fry, and Andrade. But they'll still have Morris, the Roldons, Chu, and new DP Pedro de la Vega, who got his first goal with the team last week, a PK goal and 2-1 loss to LAFC. Now, last year when these teams played, both road teams won 2-1. But Austin has just 3 road wins in 22 MLS games, and they look to be in contention for the Spoon this year, so that might be something I stay away from. Now, if Austin were the only home team to win, that means their opponent Minnesota was the only road team to win. They did so without some key players like Reynoso and Bongi, who will likely still be out this week. It was a relatively even split of over-unders, although the unders were still definitely the better bet last week. It was 9-6 to the under 2.5. Both teams' score bets went 9-6, but we did see 3 rare 0-0 draws. Vancouver were the only team to have not played in Week 1, having a bye. This week, it'll be Atlanta, who sits out. Now, we have some other things to consider. We have CONCACAF Champions Cup with many teams in play. This week, Orlando played Cavalry on Tuesday, winning 4-0, and they advanced on aggregate as well. Philly played Saprissa on Tuesday. They drew 3-3, and they advanced on aggregate as well. Houston and St. Louis played on Tuesday. Houston winning 1-0. It was 2-2. Houston advanced on away goals. Nashville played Mocha on Wednesday. They won 4-0. They advanced 7-0 on aggregate. Since he played Cavalier on Thursday, won 4-0, moved on 6-0 on the aggregate. And New England played the last game on Thursday against Independiente de la Chora and won 3-0. They too will be moving on. Last week, when we look at the CONCACAF Champions Cup teams, there was 1 loss and 5 draws on the weekend, so you probably will want to avoid putting too much stock into some of those teams this week with some tired legs, and also looking ahead to playing again next week in the round of 16. But enough of that. Let's get into some games this weekend. And we'll start off parlay number 1 with RSL and LAFC in the Western Conference. It's already game 3 for RSL. They lost in Miami 2-0. They drew in St. Louis 1-1. LAFC came out strong with a 2-1 home win over Seattle. They were up 2-0, but Seattle was also missing a ton of players in that game, so hard to fully judge that result. Last year, RSL won in their last meeting 1-0 in LA in MLS play. LAFC won the 2 other games, 4-0 in Leagues Cup and 3-0 in MLS. Both teams to score is actually 0-5 in the last 5 games between these teams, but there's been 2 or more goals in 15 of 17 all-time meetings between them. Ex-LAFC man Chicho Arango is now with RSL. He'll be going head-to-head with Dennis Buanga. This could be both teams to score this time. Certainly at least 2 goals with 2 of the top strikers in the league. RSL's last 9 home games going back to last year have seen both teams to score go 6-3, and there's been 2 or more goals in each of their last 9 games. Some way, shape, or form, I see at least 2 goals in this game. Let's go over 1.5. Inter Miami and Orlando, one of the games of the weekend in this Florida rivalry here. In 3 games last year, they drew 1-1 in the last meeting in MLS. Miami won 3-1 in Leagues Cup, and Orlando won 3-1 in MLS in Miami back in May. Both teams' scores 5-1 in recent games, and it's 11-2 all-time in the short history between them. A road team has only ever won twice, and both of those times it was Orlando. Orlando couldn't break down Montreal, though, last week despite having 60% possession, and drew 0-0. Miami will pass it around, and they'll try to attack, but they always look capable of being exploited defensively. That was the case last week. They are 1-0 after a 2-0 win over RSL and a 1-1 draw with the Galaxy, but they could have certainly given up a few goals if not for the heroics of goalkeeper Drake Callender. And now Orlando sees Muriel, the Colombian international and ex-Atalanta star, making his MLS debut. He played in the Champions Cup this week and assisted Nico Ladero's goal. He'll be a big addition to their side. It's hard not to see Miami getting a goal at home. It's something they basically always do, but Orlando should be good enough to score 2. Miami has talent, but is the oldest team in the league. They looked vulnerable last week. Orlando will have Champions Cup to look forward to this week. I still think probably some way, shape, or form, 2 goals. Better odds would be both teams to score, or just go over to 1.5 to be super safe in the early stages of this season. And we'll round out this parlay with Vancouver and Charlotte. Vancouver didn't play in Week 1, but they were in action in the CONCACAF Champions Cup last month. They drew 1-1 at home and lost 3-0 away to Mexican side Tigres. The Caps ended last season with 1 win in 7. They've lost back-to-back games versus LAFC in the playoffs. to end their season. Now, since that time, they have one preseason win over Diazgyar, certainly said that one wrong, of the Hungarian League, and are now winless in 6 games. All said, preseason, Champions Cup, playoffs, and last season, they've not been great. They only have 2 wins in 16 games. Still, they've scored in 12 of 16 with Brian White, Ryan Gold. They're always goal dangerous, and now they've added Damir Kryluk from RSL up top for more scoring punch. Charlotte is the opposite. They started with a 1-0 home win over New York City FC last week, and they have yet to lose in 2024 if you count the preseason. They're 3-2-0. If you go back to last year, they have just 1 loss in 10. They've also scored a goal in 9 of 10. Still, this Charlotte team isn't one that has many impact players right now, and they have a ton of injuries with the likes of Bronico, Bender, Tulioma, Arfield, and Argyamang missing out. The only ever meeting between these teams, there was just one, and it was 2-1 Charlotte back a home win in 2022. Now, in Charlotte's short history on the road in MLS, they have allowed a goal in 10 of 11 recent games, and also in 30 of 33 all-time games. So they are basically a great bet to at least be scored on every week. So let's go. We haven't seen Vancouver yet play in MLS, so I do think they should probably win this game, but we haven't seen them yet. Let's go Vancouver just to score. It'll be a small paying parlay, but it's very attainable. Vancouver to score, Miami, Orlando over 1.5, RSL, LAFC over 1.5, and I got that at minus 136 odds over at Caesars. Let's make one more parlay for MLS Week 2. We'll start with SKC and Philadelphia. Now, Philly needed to fight back twice at home to Chicago last week from 1-0 down and 2-1 down, and they needed every last second to do so, needing a 93rd minute score to tie 2-2. Philly was also missing Andre Blake in net, who is also a question mark again this week. He also missed the midweek with Saprissa, playing against Saprissa in the Champions Cup, where they drew 3-3. Now they have won 3-2 versus Saprissa last week as well. If we look at other recent results, Philly will advance. They will play Pachuca on Tuesday, so that is a quick turnaround against one of Mexico's top teams. SKC, they split the points in Week 1. They went to Houston and drew a 1-1 in Week 1. Like I said, that was a draw. Preseason, they saw lots of goals in SKC games. They had a 3-1 win, a 2-1 loss, and a 3-3 draw. Now that still just is preseason, so you don't put too much stock in that, but we are seeing goals in SKC games so far in 2024. And if you go back to last year, they have scored a goal in 10 of 12. They have just 1 loss at home in 10. They scored in 14 of 15 at Children's Mercy Park as well when playing at home in MLS. Now, they don't play each other often, being in opposite conferences, but they did play last year, and that game was low scoring, 0-0 in Philadelphia. Now, also, no road team has won between them in the last 10 games played. The last road win was a Philadelphia win way back in 2014. So that doesn't mean much right now. It's a long ago, and they don't play each other often, but just a fun fact. I don't want to be betting on CONCACAF Champions Cup teams like Philadelphia, who just played this week and will be playing again in a few days and likely are looking ahead. So I would say the value would be on an SKC home win at plus 110 odds. Certainly, though, SKC should score versus a Philly team that's allowed 7 goals in 3 games and also conceded in 2 of 3 preseason games. They're going to have to rotate some players here playing on Tuesday. The likes of Wagner, Glesnes on the back line, and the defensive mid, McGlynn, all played 120 minutes this week. Let's go SKC to score in this parlay. And then we'll round it out with a late game on Saturday. Could be one of the most exciting games. It's San Jose and LA Galaxy. The Cali Classico always sees goals. It is one of the highest scoring head-to-head games in MLS history. 3 MLS games. In the 3 games these teams played last year, first LA won 2-1 at home, and then they drew 2-2 in San Jose, and then LA won 3-2 in San Jose. Both bets on both teams to score and over 2.5 is on a perfect 7-0 run with 29 goals scored combined in those 7 games, which is just ridiculous. Now, both teams to score bets hitting in Week 1, San Jose losing 2-1 in Dallas, and that came without Dallas even having many of their key players. They were missing 3 DPs and 2 other starters. And LA drew 1-1 at home to Miami, but they had boatloads of chances. They missed the PK. They created the second most XG so far in the league at 3.2, only behind that of the 4.5 of DC, if you look at those stats over at FB Ref. LA's new DP winners, Paintcell and Peck, look good, and LA should have beaten Miami, if not for Calendar in net, making some great saves. There was a controversial Mark Delgado red card. Messi tied it in stoppage time as well. There was a lot of things that could have gone differently, that could have seen that game have plenty more goals. Now, San Jose saw new DP, Amal Pellegrino, get just 16 minutes last week. He had one shot. He should be more involved this week, and along with Ibobasi and Espinoza, San Jose should also get their chances. We certainly could very easily see a goal coming from both teams in this rivalry. It's something that basically always happens. We'll go both teams to score. San Jose and LA, you certainly could go both teams to score in over 2.5 for some better odds, but this parlay will be both teams to score, San Jose, LA, SKC to score, minus 120 odds. Now let's just quickly touch, there's on the one Sunday game, this is a standalone game, it's New England and Toronto. Now, this game, it was this matchup was 2-1 and 2-0 for New England last year. New England lost 3-1 in DC last week, but they went down a player early in the game and then saw Benteke score a hat trick against them for Toronto. They got a good and rare road point for them last week in Cincinnati, drawing 0-0. They have a new coach, they're working in a new system and formation, and they were the league's worst team last year. New England just played Thursday, they'll be playing on Wednesday, and they're missing Veroni through suspension. So let's just leave this one alone, but just some stats to consider if you want to make a bet on that game. We'll leave it at that and keep gathering some more info on these teams in the early stages of this season. But what do you like? There's a lot of other games out there. Be sure to drop your bets in the comments. Do you like any straight bets, parlays, any upsets this week? Let me know in the comments, and good luck with all of your MLS picks this week.